Boker Tov. Today's daf is daf Nun Ches. Number 58 is room for Chanukah basis room for a four shlemer for Chaim Akiva ben Rivka Yat. And we'll start the new parak in Mitzvah today. Now, I brought the diagram again just to give you an idea, but I'm going to give you a preamble right now before we even start. We've discussed that this is 187 in length by 135. Everything here is perfectly centered. The Heichal is perfectly centered halfway, so that, again, north is on the bottom on this diagram and south is on the top. But the Heichal is perfectly in between. It's halfway, in other words, it's centered. So therefore, the doorway of the Heichal over here, which is 10 amos wide, is half in the south and half in the north. The same thing with the doorway of the Ulam. The corridor that goes in before the Heichal, the room that enters the Heichal, that's also halfway. But the door of the Heichal is 10 amos wide. The door of the Ulam is 20 amos wide. But again, it's half and half. The real question is, and that's what we're going to be dealing with for a couple of days now, where was the Mizbeach exactly? We know the dimensions of the Mizbeach. The Kevish had a footprint of 32. The Mizbeach had a footprint of 32. But we saw, remember, that the ramp, the Kepish overlapped 2 amos. It went over the place where there would have been a Yesod if there was a Yesod on the south side, and plus over the Sovev, the ledge. So the total footprint of the Mizbeach and the Kevish was not 64, 32 plus 32, but it was rather 62, because 2 amos were, so to speak, were absorbed in there. In other words, the Kevish went over 2 amos of the Mizbeach. Where was the Mizbeach, though? On this diagram, it's sort of like, well, it's somewhat in the north and mostly in the south. There's going to be a machlokus in the Gemara. Where was it? Was it in the south? Was it in the north? Or was it half and half? 50-50. That's going to be a discussion that we're going to deal with. But first, the Gemara says like this. Says the Mishnah. Kache kachim sheshachtim b'roshim mizbeach. Kache kachim, where are they supposed to be slaughtered? In the north, right? In the tzafon. That's when Kacha Kachim column. One of the differences. Kacha Kachim, you're moeling them all the way until the Kohanim can eat the meat. You're moeling everything. Kachim column, you're only moel in the Emurim. The Emurim of the Kachim column are Kacha Kachim. But another difference is, the most well-known difference is that Kacha Kachim have to be shechted in the north. Kibul Dam B'Zraka in the north. Kachim column anywhere in the Azara. Okay. Rabbi Yossi Omer. Now, Stam Rabbi Yossi is Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta. There's different Rabbi Yossis. There's Rabbi Yossi Aglili. We're going to have Rabbi Yossi reviewed in the Mishnah. Stam Rabbi Yossi is Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta. Now, Rabbi Yossi Omer, if you shechted it anywhere on the Mizbeach, normally where do you shech the carbon? On the ground, on the Ritzpah. If it's Kachi Kachim, opposite, meaning connected. In other words, you would shecht it over here. This, it says, Beis HaMikbachayim, this is the slaughtering area. You'd shecht it here. This is the north. Opposite al yerach mizbeach tzafona, the pasuk says, by the side of the mizbeach northward. So you'd shecht it over here. Here the Gemara is talking about what happens if you shechted it on the mizbeach. Yes. You climb the mizbeach and shechted it over there. It's not the normal way to do it, but let's say you did. So Rabbi Yossi says, Ki'ilu nishku b'safan. If you shechted it on top of the mizbeach, it's as if you shechted it in the north, meaning it's correct. It's kachim kachim. Now, does that mean that he holds? Listen carefully. Does that mean that he holds that the whole Mizbeach was actually in the north? Is that what he means? Or does he just mean, no, the north is the north. The Mizbeach might be somewhere else in the south, but on top of the Mizbeach is considered as if it's north. That's the question. So Rabbi Yossi says, if you shechted it on the Mizbeach, it's as if you did. And it sounds like he's saying that the top of the Mizbeach is as if it's in the north, even though it may not be in the north. We don't know yet. Rabbi Yossi Yehuda says no. If you're talking about the top of the Mizbeach, just like the Azara, halfway, the north side is Kachim Kachim, the south side could be even for Kachim column, right? The same thing with the Mizbeach. The north half of the Mizbeach is north, is considered north. The south half of the Mizbeach is considered south. Considered south. Does it mean it's in the south or in the north? We'll see. So again, if you shech kachim on the mizbeach, and anywhere on the mizbeach is like the north. According to Rav Shapiro, no, only the northern part of the Mizbeach is like Safan, not the southern part. That's right. That's right. You have to schlep them up there, right? Or, well, if it's a lamb or a kid, then maybe easy. Yeah. A lot of the stuff there is pretty hard, right? You wouldn't have to, you'd prefer to do it, like you said before, with visual, visual reality, right? Visual reality. You don't want to use it with to really do it. Amar Vasi Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yossi said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that Omer Rabbi Yossi kul mizbeach with safin koi. Now this is what he said. Rashi brings out right away that Rabbi Yochanan had a Kabbalah that Rabbi Yossi held that the whole mizbeach was actually in the north. That's what he said. The whole mizbeach is in the north. Oh well, that seems to jibe what we're saying here now. If he held the whole mizbeach was actually in the north, that's why Rabbi Yossi says in the Mishnah that if you shechted it on top of the mizbeach, you're okay. Right, the kachik was supposed to be the tzafon. So Rabbi Asi said that Rabbi Yochanan had a Kabbalah that Rabbi Yossi held the whole mizbeach was actually in the north physically. So my keilu. So why does it say? Why does the Mishnah say? In other words, Rav Asi is assumedly learned it from the Mishnah. Rabbi Yossi says in the Mishnah, if you shech on mizbeach, it's like in the north, right? Because he hold the whole mizbeach is actually in the north. So what do you mean my keilu? Keilu sounds like. It's not really avol ke'ilu, like the way the kids talk ke'ilu. It's not really, it's as if. What do you mean it's as if? If the whole mizbeach is in the north, you're in the north. What's the problem? Just say the whole mizbeach is in the north. My ke'ilu? No. Mao is saying Mabina and Yerach mizbeach safona. I might think it's got to be on the side. Even though technically the whole mizbeach is in the north, but I might think on the side, it's got to, because it's got to be on the side of the mizbeach towards the north. The leka, it's not, because you're not on the side, you're on top of the mizbeach. Kamash more, no. That's okay too. That's also considered north. So that's what Rav Asi said. That Rabbi Yochanan presumably, who said Rabbi Yossi al the Homas Be'echad Safan, learned it from our Mishnah. Amalei Rav Zever Rav Asi. Wait a minute. Elameatel Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda. What about Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda? And argues on our Mishnah. He says only the northern part of the Mizbeach. If you're on top of the Mizbeach, only the northern part is good for kachim. Right? Elameatel Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda. Hachanami the Chetzi but Safan the Chetzi b'darm. What are you going to tell me? He also holds that the Mizbeach is exactly perfectly halfway in the north, halfway in the south. It's split down the middle, just like the Heichel. Is that what he says? If that's the case, you yourself, Rav Asi said, Nishmeid Rabbi Yochanan, that Motor Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, Sheim Shachtan Kenegdan Bekarka Psula. You yourself said that Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda says, listen, let's say magically, let's say if you he says, Rabbi Yossi says, even though Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda Mishnah says that on top of the Mizbeach, half is north and half is south, but if let's say you remove the Mizbeach and you shechted it on the floor underneath the Mizbeach, where the Mizbeach is there, it's no good. It's no good. Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda Shem Shachtan Kenegin Bakarka is puzzle. Why? Because it's south. Because Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda really holds the whole thing is south. The whole Mizbeach is south. So if the whole Mizbeach is south up here, and let's say you remove part of the Mizbeach and you shechted it there, you couldn't shech kachim because it's in the south. So you can't say that from the Mishnah you see, you know what the machlokus is? We're talking about physically. Is the Mizbeach in the north according to Rabbi Yossi? According to Rabbi Yossi, that's Rabbi Yossi min Chalafta. According to Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, no, it's halfway and half. Can't be that. Because Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda clearly holds, even according to you, Rav Asi, said that if you remove the Mizbeach layer and you shechted it in that part, on the northern part where the Mizbeach was, the northern part of the Mizbeach on the ground, it's no good. That means that it's in the south. Elamayisi, he holds it's in the south. It says Rashi, where the lines, before the lines get wide, when the lines are still narrow, right? Almasfirle Bidara Mazarahu. He holds obviously it's in the north. It's in the south. Dilo, my puzzle. Why would he say it's puzzle? Okay, that Rashi's really going on a Gemara later, but he's explaining Rav Shapiro. So you can't say that. You can't say that they're arguing about physically where the Mizbeach was. They're arguing about what is the law on the top of the Mizbeach. What's the top of the Mizbeach has a halacha? Does it have a halacha it's north or it's halacha half and half? That's the machlokes in our Mishnah. Right? Amalei Hachim Rabbi Yochanan Shneim. So therefore, what did he really say? When he said, this is what Rabbi Yochanan said. Shneim mikrecha darshu. Sure, the Omerlei is charif. This is Rav Asi answering it. So Rav Asi said, we assume that Rav Asi meant is that Rabbi Yochanan held that Rabbi Yochanan held that Rabbi Yossi was saying that physically it's in the north. No, it's not physically at all. We're not talking about physically. You can't prove anything from our Mishnah what they hold physically. Clearly, Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, who says that if you shechted it in the place where the Mizbeach is, even the northern part of the Mizbeach, you shechted it on the ground, it would be no good. It indicates that Rabbi Shapiro holds the whole thing was in the south. Right? So therefore he says, therefore Ravasi, I guess, retracts and says, no, Hachim Rabbi Yochanan, Shnei Mikra Chadashu. They both darshan, what's the halacha of the top of the Mizbeach? Forget about physically north and south. Right? Rabbi Shapiro really holds this in the south, that's clear. Rabbi Yossi, he held, Rabbi Yochanan held that Rabbi Yossi held that it's in the north. Why would he say that then? If it's not from our Mishnah, both Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yossi both learned their halachas, that the top of the Mizbeach has halacha of north or north and south from this pasuk. The pasuk says like this: the end of Yisro, it says, it says, shecht on the Mizbeach, Mizbach Adamot Tasali, Vezavachta olav, es olosecha v'eshlemecha, your olos and your shlom. Ola is kachim kachim, shlom is kachim kala. Rabbi Yossi savar kula olav kula shlom. You could shech on the top of the Mizbeach, on the whole Mizbeach, you could check ola or shlomim. If you could check on top of the Mizbeach, ola, anywhere on top of the Mizbeach, that shows that the top of the Mizbeach is considered kachim kachim, it's considered safon, right? It's considered safon. And therefore, that's why it's considered safon. In other words, this is where he got it from in the Mishnah. But Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda Savar, no. We're not talking about physically. Physically, we're not talking about what they hold. All the Mishnah is saying is that Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta held that the top of the Mizbeach has a halacha like safon. Whether it's in the north or not, it has a halacha like safon. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda Savar, Chetzi Olav, Chetzi L'Sham. No, it's half. Why does it say Ola Secha V'Shlomecha? Why does it say Ola Secha V'Shlomecha? To tell you, part of it's for the Ola, part of it's like the Safon, part of it's like the South, even for Shlam. Isach Kula Ola, if it's all for Ola, if the top of the Mizbeach has a halacha like Safon, like Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta says, Isach Kula Ola Kasher, Hasha Kula Ola Kasher, Kula Shlam Boy. Why does the pasuk say it's Ola Sech V'Shlemecha? If you could shecht, if the Ola is okay up there because it's north, certainly the Shlam could be in the north too. So therefore, why does it say Ola Sech V'Shlemecha? Part of the top of the Mizbeach has a halacha like Safon for Ola. Part of it has a halacha like Darom for Shlamim. V'idach, what will Rabbi Yossi ben Yehuda say? Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta. Why does he say that it's all for Ola? Itzrach, I still need to say Shlam too. Sakach, I may think. Ola hu d'dachak le'makam. If you have an Ola and a Shlamim, where do you have more space to shecht your carbon? Shlamim, because you have the whole Azara. Ola has less space. Remember, you always ask, how do they do so many carbonas there? It's tight. He says, well, Ola has less space. You can only do it Safon. So I might think, Salimina, Ola, hu d'dachalik makam, av shlamim, shlamim, which doesn't have, you have plenty of space anyway. The lo dachim, there's not, you're not limited space there. A malo, maybe you shouldn't be able to shechter on top of his beach. Shlam has to be on the ground. The top of his beach, no matter where it is, even if it's in the south, maybe should have a halacha only for Olas like Safon, because Safon has limited space elsewhere. So we give it the space here. Kamashmon, we don't say that. Kamashmon, half is for Ola, half is for Shlam. So that's the shot in the Mishnah, that when he says, Rabbi Yossi says on the top of the Mizbeach, top of the Mizbeach has a halacha like Safon. Anywhere on the Mizbeach is like a Safon. That's what he learns based on the fact that it's Ola Sech V'Shlemecha. Top of the Mizbeach, it says, V'zavachta olav es Ola Sech V'Shlemecha. You could check your Olas or your Shlamim there. Anywhere on top of the Mizbeach has a halacha like Safon. The Yossi says, no, it's half Safon, half Darom. But Rabbi Yossi here, we already explained, holds physically, where is the Mizbeach? In the south. Because he says if you shechted it anywhere on the floor space, right, on the footprint of the Mizbeach, below the Mizbeach, where the Mizbeach is, if you remove the Mizbeach somehow, we'll talk about how they did that. If you remove the Mizbeach somehow and you shechted it there, it's no good for an Ola. That means that it's considered all in the south. Gufa. Amar Vasim Rabbi Yochanan, Motor Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, Shim Shachtan Keneged Bekarka Psulas. If you shechted it opposite where the Mizbeach is, on the ground, in place where the Mizbeach is, it's puzzle. Meaning that it's on south. What do you mean, connect them bekarka? What did you do with the Mizbeach? If you shechted it where the Mizbeach is, on the ground, it's puzzle. How could it be connected? Maybe you shechted it on the yesod, or the sovev, the ledge around there. Haguf Mizbeach, that's considered Mizbeach. That's part of the Mizbeach. It's on the Mizbeach, right? Va'od might connect them bekarka. What do you mean on the karka? On the karka, if you did a connecting bekarka nearby, even if it's over here, we're assuming, remember there's three different shitas. There's safon only opposite the Mizbeach, right in this area here, or it could include this area, or it could include all the area. But presumably you can't do it on the side. Let's say we're assuming now Rav Shapiro is the one who holds that it's got to be mamish keneged the Mizbeach. It's got to be opposite the Mizbeach, so it can't be on the side. Maybe you did this. Maybe you built the Mizbeach on top of tunnels. Bekarka, v'shachabu, and you shechted it there. V'chiyai gavim miyavim mizbeach. Is that a mizbeach? But Tanya will learn mizbeach adamah tasali. Again, that pasuk says mizbeach adamah tasali v'zabach dolav. It's the same pasuk we talked about before. Mizbeach adamah tasali she'mechuber b'adamah should be attached to the ground. You can't build it on a hollow. Can't build it on top. You can't build it on tunnels or on archways. It's got to be literally on the ground. So how could it be? The basri b'tzurei. You remove part of the Mizbeach. Now, if it's damaged, you can't bring a carbon there. We learned that before, right? If it's damaged. But let's say, for some reason, don't forget the Mizbeach of Moshe Rabbeinu was much smaller than the Mizbeach of Shlomo Melech. But let's say you remove part of it. So if you remove part of it, you remove the northern part of the Mizbeach, and you shechted right there in that spot. Rabbi Yosef says it's no good. Why? Because the whole Mizbeach is in the south. That's Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, now, so what do we have so far? We know Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda holds that physically, in our mission, we're talking about physically. We're talking about what's the halacha. If I'm top of the Mizbeach, is that halacha of tzafon, or is it the northern part is like the tzafon, the southern part of the top of the Mizbeach is like the Rome, like the south. Okay, that's the Mishnah. What is the halacha of? Physically, where was the Mizbeach though? Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda says it's in the south. Rav Asi said that he has a Kabbalah that he learned from Rabbi Yochanan. He was a Talmud Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan, like Rashi said in the second line on the top of this page, Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan had a Kabbalah that Rabbi Yossi held that the Mizbeach was physically in the north. Physically in the north. Where does he say that? It's not in our Mishnah, because our Mishnah is talking about Ke'ilu, like where does it have halacha of? But where did we know that? Amar Rav Zeir. So Rav Zeir says like this. Rav Zeir, who was arguing with Rav Yossi, with Rav Asi, he says, Efsher Isla Rabbi Yochanan, is it true that Rabbi Yochanan's halacha is right? That what? That Rabbi Yochanan said that Rav Yossi ben Chalafta holds that the whole Mizbeach was physically in the north, not like on this diagram where it's half and half or partial. The whole Mizbeach is in the north. Is it true that he really Efsher Isla Rabbi Yochanan v'lo Tananim Asisan and it's not listed anywhere in a Mishnah or a Brisa? How could it be? Where does he get that from? Where did he hold it from? Rashi already said he had a Kabbalah, Rabbi Yochanan had a Kabbalah, that's what Rabbi Yossi holds. But is it possible he holds that and it's not listed in any Mishnah in Shas? Nafek, he went out, Rav Zera went out, Duck, he checked, Bashkach, and he found this Mishnah. What does the Mishnah say in Talmud? Listen to this. I'm going to explain it first over here. If you look at the Mizbeach, and actually, I think if you look at some of the other diagrams you have, here's a picture of the Mizbeach. It's a diagram, right? So it's a rendition. You come up on the kevish, and what do you have here on top of the Mizbeach? There's a bunch of things. You have the main wood pile in the middle, where they burn most of the kabbanos. And then you have, this is the tapuch, where they put the ashes. Over here on the right side, that would be the southeast corner, you had the big maracha, where they burn the stuff. Then you had over here, I can't even read it correctly, this is a place where they supplied fire from. They had like a fire going. And on the left side, it says Mizbach Maracha HaKatoras. This is the fire that they need they make the ashes that they take inside the Heichal. Now, where is this physically? If you look out on the picture here, this is the Maracha HaKatoras, meaning it's the closest spot to the Pesach going into the Heichal. It's the closest spot over here. Now, so there were actually three different fires going on the Mizbeach. One is one that was supplied the fire. One was the big maracha where they burnt the karbonos, like the Ola. And one is the Maracha HaKtoras, where they had fire over there that made ashes, from which they took inside the Heichal, and they put that on the inner Mizbeach, and they burned the Ktoras there twice a day. That's the Pitam HaKtoras that we say every day. He burned it there. And on Yom Kippur, took it inside the Kachei Kachim, and burnt the Ktoras over there, the incense. Let's see the Gemara. Amar Rav Zeir, Efshis Rabbi Yochanan Tanina, not Ashkach the Tanan. Learn a mission like this in Talmud. Biru Misham Atzetena. Now, how did they make the fire? This maracha, the fire, the wood pile of the Ktoras. in the lower left-hand corner of the top of the Mizbeach. That would be the southwest corner of the Mizbeach. They checked Birshim. They chose very carefully Atzeitena, fig wood, Yafim L'Seder Maracha. They chose from the woodshed where they kept the wood supply. They chose nice Tainim. Rashi says it's a remembrance because that's how Hashem dressed Adam and Chava. Kosnos or V'Yalbish, he made it from that. It says Kosnos or. Rashi says over here that made like belts or girdles for them, right? It says the Kosnos or made them chagrot, made something for them from that. So it's a zeicher for that. So they chose nice fig wood. L'seder ha'maracha shnia. That's the maracha shnia. We say every day, maracha shnia. We say in the karbanos, maracha shnia shel ketoras. That's the second wood pile, the second fire assembly. Maracha shel ketoras. Keneged keren ha'ravos by the southwest corner. Like I said, this is the southwest corner on the top of Mizbeach, right? Moshech min ha'keren klapit sofan abrams. Listen to this. At a distance, listen to this. The corner is over here, right? This is the corner. This is the corner of the Yesod. This is the corner of the Soviet. This is the corner of Top Mizbeach. And it says 4 amos distance from the southwest corner. So it wasn't actually literally on the corner. It was a distance of 4 amos northward from the southwest corner, right? Got this is important. Get this. Pardon?
What?
The second the wood pile for that they burnt the ashes for the ketoras that are going to be burned inside was in the southwest corner, 4 amos northward from the southwest corner, 4 amos up. 4 amos up. But it wasn't actually on the corner, physically on the corner. It was 4 amos up. Okay. 4 amos up. Now, Mashach min ha'keren klapit sofan. It was on the southwest corner, but distance of 4 amos northward. Ba'omed chameson, and they put enough wood there to produce ashes of 5 saw. Saw is a volume measure to produce five saw, from which they would burn the stuff on the incense of coals. Ba'omed chameson and kacholim. In other words, they would produce enough wood to produce 5 saw of coals. Ubeshabbos ba'omed shmonas saw and kacholim. On Shabbos, they needed a little bit more, enough to make 8 saw of coals. On Shabbos, they would take out, remember where was the lechem aponim? Was on the table inside the heichal, and every Shabbos they would exchange them, make new ones. And how did they do that? They first took the 2 cups of frankincense that were on the mizbeach and on the shulchan, and they took them outside and they burned them on the outer mizbeach in that spot, on that maracha shnia. So they needed more ashes on Shabbos. Okay. Now, Umay Simana, why would they put it in the southwest corner? Why did it go here? Why did they put this over here in the southwest corner, 4 amos northward from the corner, not somewhere else on the Mizbeach? Why over there? What's the simon? What was its what was the logic behind it? The simon is what's the sign? What's the principle here? So Rabbi Yossi, listen to this. It goes like Rabbi Yossi. Now this is the Rabbi Yossi that we're talking about. We're trying to prove where did Rabbi Yochanan get this idea, or Rabbi Yochanan maybe had a Kabbalah that. Where do we find that Rabbi Yossi holds that it's in the north? That what's in the north? The Mizbeach is in the north. Remember, Rabbi Yossi Yehuda said it's in the south. We're going to have an opinions that it's halfway. And Rav Asi said, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta held that it was in the north. Where do we get this from? So this Mishnah says this. What's the principle here in the southwest corner, 4 amos from Rabbi Yossi to Tanya? Anamid Beis. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Zeh Siman. This is the Siman. Kol anitel b'fnim linas mechutz. Anything inside the heichal that would be taken outside, you got to put it as close as possible. In other words, anything that had to be taken from inside the heichal to outside to burn it outside here had to be on the very closest spot you could be. What's the first thing you can come to? What's the first spot you can come to? That southwest corner. Had to be in that spot. Anything taken from inside the eichel, that there's nothing closer than that. Anything taken from the outside, that would be the ashes produced on that maracha shnia. To put inside, it's got to be closer. There's nothing closer than that. Now, what are we speaking about? Anything on the inside, are we talking about the blood? Are we talking about on the blood that what goes on the yesod? Remember, blood of which karbanos? The ones that are burnt inside on Yom, the ones that are burnt and offered inside on Yom Kippur. They're burnt outside, but they're ones that are totally burnt. The parim and Srafim, Sirim Srafim, par of Yom Kippur, Sar of Yom Kippur, the param Davashal Tzibur, the par Kohen Mashiach. All those things are brought inside the Heichal, and on Yom Kippur, the par and Sar, even inside the Kodesh Kodeshim. Are we talking about the blood, the leftover blood? What do you do with the leftover blood? You pour it on the yesod in the southwest corner. Are we speaking about that? So what Rabbi Yossi has to teach me that? It says beferish el yesod mizbeach ha'olah asher pesach ha'moed. That we know about the blood. The blood is beferish pasuk. I don't need Rabbi Yossi to tell me this idea. They put the marach over there, and that's blood b'chlal. V'su kolin it b'chutz. If you're talking about anything on the outside, linas and b'thin, mind you, ilay mikachom shom. Oh, we talking about the coals on Yom Kippur. Remember, there was a Kohen, a special Kohen on Yom Kippur, who took the coals, put him inside. That was Kohen Gadol did all the avoda, but somebody picked it up from him. Then he had the machta, the shovel of the coals in one hand, the dam in the other hand. He went inside the Kodesh Kodashim and he put it down, put the coals on the ground, and then he put the ktoros on top of that, and it's, the smell all went up, the smoke went up. Right, and that we know goes inside. So we all know that's got to be Me'al Mizbech. It's got to be right there. Got to be right there. It's the closest spot. Yisrael Mizbech Asher Pesach Ol Moed. The pasuk is from right before Hashem. In other words, the closest spot possible. So we already know those things. Like I mentioned before. What's taken in from inside, taken outside? The 2 cups of frankincense that were taken every Shabbos, that you put them up there when you put the new ones there, you put the new frankincense, and then on the next Shabbos they took them out and they burned them on the second maracha. Right? The Gamri Mimshayim, you learn it from Shraim, just like the Shraim of the blood, taken inside and put on the closest spot outside. That would be the southwest corner. That's where they had the 2 holes where they put the remainder of the blood. The same thing, what's taken from inside the Heichal, the 2 cups of frankincense are put on the closest spot outside. That would be the southwest corner. What's nitel b'chutz and what's taken from outside, taken inside? Gecholim b'chol yuma, not the gecholim of Yom Kippur, which go all the way inside the Kodesh Kodashim, but rather the daily ktoros. For the Kohen did it twice a day. He took ashes from the maracha of the ktoros, took ashes, put them inside on the inner mizbeach, the small mizbeach, the mizbeach hazov, mizbeach ktoros. Every day, the government comes on, you learn it from Yom Kippur. It's just like over there, you take it from the closest spot here too. Okay, now, all right, so that's what we're speaking about. We're speaking about, you put it in the south. Why is it in the southwest corner? Because that's the closest spot to the Heichal, right? And you got to take things from the Heichal inside there, from Heichal outside to the outer Mizbeach, and you want the closest spot, closest to the doorway of the Heichal, and you want to take stuff from the ashes from that Mizbeach and take that inside to the Mizbeach HaTorah. Okay, where do you get the 4 amas from? Mike Suver, what does Rabbi Yossi hold? We're trying to determine Rabbi Yossi holds. Remember, trying to prove, does Rabbi Yossi really hold, like Rabbi Yochanan said, that the whole Mizbech is in the north? Now, if the whole Mizbech is in the south, like we said, Rabbi Yossi Yehuda holds, if the whole Mizbech is in the south, what was the length of the whole Mizbech? 32, right? 32, right? And we want that spot to be close as possible to the opening of the Heichal. Listen to this. If the whole Mizbeach is in the south, what does that mean? We said this is all equidistant here, right? So the opening here, this Heichal, is halfway. I said that the doorway of the Heichal is 10 amas wide, 5 in the south and 5 in the north. If the whole Mizbeach is in the south rather, how much of the Mizbeach is facing the doorway of the Heichal? How much? 5 amas. Because the whole Mizbeach is in the south, right? We're assuming it's not further south, it's right on the border of south and north. So the whole Mizbeach is in the south, and how much of the doorway of the Heichal here is in the south? 5 amas, half of it. The doorway is 10 amas wide. So it's 5 amas. So how much of the Mizbeach is facing the doorway of the Heichal? 5 amos. 5 amos out of how much? Out of 32. No, 5 amos out of this. But how much of the Mizbeach? How much of the Mizbeach? Yes, 5 amos of this. This is fixed. But the Mizbeach is 32. How much of the Mizbeach is facing that doorway if the whole Mizbeach is in the south? These 5 amos. So therefore, if you wanted to get from the southwest corner and you want it to be you want it to be facing the doorway, it shouldn't be 4 amos northward from the south corner. It should be 27 amos, because you got to go 27 amos from this corner till you get to within 5 amos of the end. 5 amos is what faces the doorway. You understand? So why did he say it's in the southwest corner? 4 amos northward, not 4 amos. You need 27 amos. If the whole thing is in the south, if the whole Mizbeach is in the south, the Mizbeach, the only part facing the doorway now is only these 5 amos, the 5 northernmost amos of the Mizbeach. So if you wanted to put the Marach Torah facing the Heichal, you got to put it within these 5 amos. So you got to move 27 amos from here to here. That's his point. You understand that? You got to move 27 amos, so it'll be facing it. Again, says the Gemara, Umayk Savar, what does Rebbe say? Ik Savar Kulam is Beach B'Darmkoi, Esem B'Sheva, you got to move it 27. Inamik Savar Kedushas Heichal B'Ulam Chani. Maybe you'll listen. It doesn't have to be facing the doorway of the Heichal. It could be facing the doorway of the Ulam, which is the anteroom, the corridor facing it, which is 20 amos wide. 20 amos wide. That means 10 amos of the Mizbeach is facing this doorway. So you'd only have to move how much? You'd have to move from 32 to 10. So how much would you have to move? 22, right? You have to move 22. So again, Ik Savar, Binam Ik Savar Kedushas Heichal V'Olam Chari. The Kedusha of the Heichal is also, and the Olam is all one, so the Olam has the same Kedusha. Okay, Esem V'Tarti boy, Macy, you got to move 22 amos. In other words, you'd have to move from the southwest corner, move this Marach HaKtoras 22 amos up here, so that it'll be facing this doorway. So it can't be that, right? Okay, so it can't be that he holds that it's in the south, because the south doesn't work, as we just said. Because he said, Rabbi Yossi said, you got to move it 4 amos up from the 4 amos northward from the southwest corner. We're at the wide lines now in the Gemara. If he holds half in the north, half in the south, okay, half in the north, half in the south. So how much of the Mizbeach? Let's see here. This is simple math, guys. Right? If the Mizbeach is halfway in the south and halfway in the north, right? So how much of the Mizbeach is facing the doorway of the Heichal now? 16. Halfway, because it's 32. The whole thing is 32. It's half in the north, half in the south. So 16 amos, which is 16 amos. In other words, the 16 amos of this would be facing the Pesach. So again, Ik Savar. He's got to move 11 amos. Why 11? Because 16 is in the south, 16 is in the north, right? So where do you want to move it to? You want to move it 11 amos from the southwest corner. In other words, half is in the south, half is in the north. So the Pesach Heichal is 10 amos. So again, 5 amos of this is in the south, and here you have 16 amos in the south. So in order to get from 16 to 5, you've got to move it 11 amos, right? You got to move the maracha, not from this corner. You got to move it 11 amos, so it'll be facing the doorway. V'inamik savar. Again, v'inamik savar kedushas heichal v'ulam chana. Even if you hold that the heichal is good enough, the heichal and the ulam and the heichal, the ulam is good enough. The kedusha of the heichal and the ulam is 1. So shis boy lemesei. So again, so now you've only got to move it 6 amos. Why? Because if it's equidistant, halfway in the south, halfway in the north, right? And you want to move it so that it faces the ulam has 10 amos in the south. The doorway of the ulam has 10 amos in the south. So you got to move it from what? From 16 to 10, right? You got to move it from 16 to 10. So if you move it 6 amos north, you're already facing the ulam. So that would be good enough. So all you need is 6. So where do you get 4? Right? So it's just boil the mesa. It must be that he holds the whole Mizbeach is in the north. Again, we discounted the south, and we discounted half and half. must be that the whole thing is in the north. If the whole thing is in the north, right? The whole thing is in the north, then you've got a different problem. The whole thing is in the north. The whole thing is moved down to in the north. Then you could only move it up to 4 amos and still be within the doorway over here of the heichal. Why? Why? Because if it's all in the north, now you've got a different problem. That if it's too far down here, right? So you're not going to be facing the doorway at all. So he says, Elamai, he must be bitzon. What are the 4 amos? Not from the top of Mizbeach. The 4 amos are the Amma Yesod, Amma Sovev, Amma Makom Kronos, the place where the corners are, the horns. In other words, you can't put it literally in the corner here. Literally is on the ground. The Yesod, it's an Amma off the ground. The Sovev is 6 amos off the ground. We're talking about on the top of Mizbeach. On the top of Mizbeach, you can't put it on the corner. That's where the Karen is. And you need an Amma for the Kohanim to walk around to service the various fire piles. So therefore, you move it 4 amos, and that's the idea. Again, if you move it 4 amos, you're still within the Nuchal, but in the other direction. We're saying now that the whole Mizbeach is in the north, right? The Mizbeach is north. If the whole Mizbeach is in the north, right, and you want it to be, again, half of the Pesach is north, that's 10 amos there. And here you have the southern part of the Mizbeach. If the whole Mizbeach is in the north, the southern part is really what's facing the Pesach Heichel, right? Pesach Heichel, but you can't move it too far because otherwise, if you move it 5 amos away from the southern point, you already won't be facing the Heichel at all. So that's what he says that Ela Mishum Shavakul Mizbech L'Samka V'Hani Arba Amos Am Yisod Am Esov Am Makavakoros if you move it anymore, so like a Pesach, there's no Pesach over there. Because again, just like we said, the Pesach of the Heichal is 5 amos in the south and 5 amos in the north. Well, if the whole Mizbeach is in the north, you've got to catch in these 5 amos, the 5 amos that are the 5 southernmost amos of the Mizbeach, the southernmost amos of the Mizbeach, which are in the north, but only the 5 southernmost are what's facing this Pesach Heichal. So you could say you can't make it on the corner itself for these very reasons that we said. You can't make it in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th amma, so it's got to be in the 5th. If you move it to the 6 amas away, it already won't be facing the Heichal because the Pesach Heichal is only 5 amas in the north, and you're beyond that if you've gone beyond that. If the whole Mizbeach is in the north, therefore it must be that so like a Pesach. Okay, that's his proof. That's his proof that Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta holds that the whole Mizbeach is in the north. Amar Bar Abba, no, it's a difficult proof. Right, you're proving it in this convoluted way. How many read no? It goes like Rabbi Yehuda. The time Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda says beferish mizbeach mamutza ba'omed be'emsa zora. He says the mizbeach is exactly half and half north, half in the south. V'shloshim shtayim amos hayulo. It's got, we know that the mizbeach is 32 square. Hayulo. Esra amos keneged pischo shel heichel. The middle 10 amos is opposite the doorway of the heichel. In other words, if the Mizbeach is exactly halfway up between north and south, so what does that mean? The middle 10 amos facing the doorway of the Heichal, and then you have 11 here and 11 here. 10 plus 11 plus 11 is 32, right? That's the dimensions there. Nimsa Mizbeach mechuvin keneged mechel, so it's exactly opposite the Heichal. It's more sof. Even according to Shapiro, we already explained that if you hold this halfway, why is it enough to move it 4 amos high? In other words, when Rabbi Yossi said that this is how they made the Mizbeach and they made the Maracha Ktoras 4 amos from the north, you want to prove from there that he holds that it's in the north? Well, we're not so sure. Maybe he goes like Rabbi Yehuda, who holds it's really 50-50. We also Chatzari Boile Mesa. We said before that if it's 50-50, you've got to move it 11 amos up, not 4 amos, in order to be facing the doorway of the Heichel. Even if you say it's enough to put it by the Ulam, the Kedusha of the Ulam is the same as that of the Heichel, right? It's just boil the you got to move it 6. So the Gemara says, no, who says that the 4 amos includes the Yesod and the Sovev? The 4 amos we're talking about is on the top of the Mizbeach, not including the Yesod and the Sovev, which are each an amma wide, right? Arba almost bar me'am Yesod. The 4 amos is besides that, which bar me'am Yesod, the 4 amos is besides the amma of the Yesod and the Yesod, which is how much? 6. Because you don't count the Amma Yisod. The 32 by 32 includes the Amma of the Yisod and the Amma of the Sovev, the ledge. So he says the 4 Amas is on the top of the Mizbeach. On the top of the Mizbeach, you got to move it four Amas northward from the corner, from the southwest corner, which is a total of 6 if you count the Amma Yisod, and that's what we need. All you need is Amma Yisod. In other words, it could really, the Svara could go like it's 50-50, like Rabbi Yehuda says. It's half and half. And so 16 Amos of the Mizbeach is in the south, and 5 Amos of the Heichal, of the Pesach Heichal, is in the south. So in order to go from 16 to 5, right, to 16 to 5, you got to move 11. He doesn't say 11, he says 4. Oh, okay. You only have to move from 16 to 10, because 10 Amos, because the Pesach Ulam is 20 Amos wide, which means 10 Amos in the south. So you got to go from 16 to 10, which is 6. It is 6. When he said 4 Amos, you got to move it northward 4 Amos, means not including the Yesod, which is one part of the 32, and not including the Sovev, which is part of the 32. It's 4 Amos from the top of his bath. That's a total of 6, and that works out. So he says it could go like Rabbi Yehuda, like Rabbi Yehuda rather, who holds that it's 50-50, but we don't really have a proof. That's what Rabbi Yossi holds, right? Says Gemara, okay. So it says more of a nukma. So if that's the case, why do you say it goes like Rabbi Yehuda? When Rabbi Yossi said that that's how they did it, why don't you say it goes like Rabbi Yossi? And he also holds this 50, that it's half and half. And like you said, when he said remove 4 Amos from the distance, 4 Amos from the southwest corner, it means not including the Yesod and the Sovev. It's a total of 6. Rabbi Yehuda says befavorish that it's 50, that it's half. In other words, we had on Amid Aleph that Rabbi Yehuda clearly holds that the whole thing's in the south. Because he said if you take away the Mizbeach, you were to cut it off, cut up the northern part of the Mizbeach, and you sheft it over there, Ola, it's puzzle. That means that he holds that it's in the south. So Rabbi Yehuda clearly holds that it's all in the south. Rabbi Yehuda says befeirish that it's 50-50, and it's half in the north, half in the south. So clearly he says befeirish, so we could say that Bryce and Rabbi Yossi explained it goes like him. But Rabbi Yossi, who you claim holds it's in the north, not a real proof that he holds it's in the north. Could be maybe it's 50, maybe he holds like Rabbi Yehuda, who says befeirish it's in the south. Rav Shapiro, I just want to say the 2 lines of this is really tomorrow's more. Rav Shapiro, Hamanu goes to Rabbi Yossi Glili. That we're going to prove, he's going to prove that Rabbi Yossi Glili says it's in the north. That Bryce, which seems to indicate that it must be in the north, because the south doesn't work at all. And that it's 50-50 is a little bit of a dopek to say that the 4 Amos includes the Yisod and Amasov. As we know, that Tan Rabbi Yossi Glili Omer, the Pasuk says, where do you put the kior, the laver where they kept the water? That you put it between the Oel Moed, between the Heichal, right? Ubein Mizbeach. It says Ves Mizbeach Achola Pesach Oel Moed. So he says that Mizbeach is at the Pesach Moed, below kior Pesach Oel Moed. In other words, the kior where they kept the water. Here he shows it. You see, it shows it over here. This is the kior. It's between the ulam, really, and the Mizbeach, but it's not blocking the Mizbeach. There is nothing supposed to be here between the Mizbeach and the doorway of the Heichal. The kior is on the side, but it's between the Mizbeach and the ulam. That's what we're going to see. That's what the Pasuk says. And from this whole drasha, he's going to learn that they show proving that the Mizbeach is in the north. Just want to turn your attention to the Rashi on the bottom of Amud Beis here, 3 lines from the bottom of the page, and he says there, the name Rabbi Yossi can't say that this brisa that we're talking about with the wood and you're making a maracha and 4 Amos northward from the southwest corner, can't say and since he's talking about where you put it inside and outside, the stuff from inside the heichal goes outside and vice versa. Everybody holds that. We're going to see on tomorrow's stuff. Rabbi Yossi goes to Mamishin that the Mizbeach is littering the north. Rabbi Yossi Stamadu, Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta. Here Rashi tells us what I said before, that the first author of our Mishnah today, Rabbi Yossi, Stam Rabbi Yossi, Stam Rabbi Yossi is Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta. The Lo Shamash with the Amar, he didn't say clearly that it's in the north, it's in the south. Lo Tukmit, maybe he holds like Rabbi Yehuda that it's 50-50. So you can't prove Rabbi Yossi. So all we have so far is we've already alerted ourselves that Rabbi Yossi says it's in the north. Rabbi Yehuda says it's 50-50. Rabbi Yehuda holds that it's in the south, where with the Mizbeach physically. Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta, we're not sure. Have a good day. They weren't sure where.
What happened to the old Nevi'im? They said, well, Pi Hashem Dvar HaEskel. It had to be through Nevi'im that they had to be through the Nevi'im that they knew that where the Mizbeach was.
Yeah, they asked the Nevi'im, so but there obviously there was a difference.
Based by Rishon. I don't know if by
yeah. So there was a difference of opinion where it was. That's what happened. People forgot. Kol Tov.
Kol Tov, beautiful.